everybody, welcome to today's Unlock show. You guys are probably thinking, what the heck, Trace? It's like 10 past 1 on a Friday afternoon. It is not the regular scheduled time. And you would be absolutely right. This morning I had some contractors in my apartment making a ruckus and a whole lot of noise. And just wasn't going to work if I was to go live at 10 a.m. this morning. The audio would have been absolutely awful. So what do? You don't not do a show, right? You turn up, you still show up, and you just do it at a new time. So they've all left. I have some time now, peace and quiet here, that I'm able to jump on and actually be present without having to worry about what everybody else is doing here. And I can just be present with you guys. So what have I got in store for you today? Well, as you know, it's been a really awesome week this week, actually. In the world of Tracy Wilson, I'm feeling pretty darn good about everything that's been going on. I've had some awesome coaching sessions with people, produced some new content. It's been a really fantastic week. And being someone who's like committed to, I suppose, learning, and I'm always, wanting to know new things, and that's what I've been up to. I've been learning some new skills, and it really puts you in a great frame of mind and just makes you feel really good. So anyhow, today, what have I got in store for you? The 8 habits of highly effective people. Now, you guys might be saying right now, you got that wrong, Trace. There's only 7. We know because we've read the book of Stephen Covey, and he says there are 7. Well, today I'm going to cover off 8 of those, 8 habits of highly effective people. And I want to say that this is going to be my take on Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people and what it actually really means to me. So you're dead right. He does have a book. It has 7 habits of highly effective people. But what some people mightn't know is that there is actually an 8th habit of highly effective people that he actually talks about, and he's got a whole book on it. But I'm going to get to all of that soon, and you will start to understand, and I'm going to share with you what that 8th habit actually is. So join me today. I want to know, have you guys actually read that book? Have you read Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? If you have, type to me in the chat. Let me know that you've read it. And maybe even as I'm going through and talking about, the concepts and what they actually mean to me and how I apply them, maybe you can come along on the journey and you could be doing exactly the same thing. Tell me what you think of those. And how I've kind of got to this place right now is to be talking to you about these 7 the 8 habits of highly effective people. As part of my learning this week has been all around like increasing my capacity to learn, my brain capacity, like turning the program I'm doing is like turning your brain into a super brain. And I have actually really surprised myself with some of the things that I've been learning, my ability to be able to recall information. And part of that process has been to learn and to apply these techniques and then be able to talk like this and not have to use any notes. So my practice, because we know that practice makes progress. So my practice today is to actually talk about these things without having any notes, with me just talking about what the 7 or the 8 habits are, and then being able to talk through what they actually mean to me without me having any notes. So let's just see how, and we'll test Tracy's memory with all of this today. So when I had the opportunity, it was quite some time ago that I read the book, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and thinking about, as I was doing my training this week with the program that I'm doing, and in that program, they were talking about these 7 habits of highly effective people. And it sort of started me thinking, gosh, I could be talking about those because they are definitely the things that I know over time I have implemented into my life. And not through purposely teaching the 7 habits or the 8 habits as we've got today, but those habits to other people. When I went back and I reviewed what they were, I realized that a lot of those things I'm actually doing in my life, and they're the things that I also teach a lot of my students to do. So anyway, it gave me the idea and the concept of us being able to talk about and really reflect and revisit what those 8 habits of highly effective people are. So here we go. The first habit that he speaks about is the habit of responsibility. Now, when I think about responsibility, I think about, how responsible am I going to be, showing up to things, doing the things that I'm going to do, that I have a responsibility to, to be a good person, to, I've got responsibilities to family, to friends, to community, all of those sorts of things. So to me, it's like understanding who I am and how I need to show up, and then being very responsible for that. So taking responsibility for. And if I think about this week, like I've had a number of instances over the last week where I've actually been on my own, and that's given me an opportunity to really think deeply about some areas of my life and some different aspects of that. And part of almost letting go of some things was actually me taking full responsibility for that particular thing. And I won't go into what that was. Maybe I might share it on another episode at some point. But the practice of actually saying, well, I'm going to take full responsibility and ownership of that, there's something actually really liberating about it, and it actually allows you to let go of some things. So the first thing is that responsibility, and that's really how I apply it to my life and how I have been applying it in the moment over the last week. The next thing that Stephen Covey talks about is starting with the end in mind. And you might also have heard that from the book by Simon Sinek. He talks about start with the end in mind. And you may have heard me speak about this on previous different shows where I talk about, coming up with our goals and our vision and like dreaming into the future and then bringing that future into the present. So it's the same kind of concept. It's like starting with that end in mind. Where do I want to go? What is it that I'm wanting to do? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? And then setting some really, some goals and some targets around those. So what direction you're going to go in. It's like you setting out on a really big road trip. If you were going to do that, what do you usually do first? You've either got a GPS that you're going to be using, but you know what the end goal is, because you can't put in, hey, I want to go from the Gold Coast to Sydney, without actually putting Sydney as the destination into the GPS. So if you want to be able to get somewhere really quickly, you have to start with knowing where it is that you are going or what it is that you are trying to achieve. So that's really what that means to me. It's like start with the end in mind, understand where it is that you're trying to go. And then a lot of the times I'll start to reverse engineer things. I'll start to reverse engineer, how am I going to create X, Y, Z? If that's my end goal, what do I actually have to do to achieve that? So setting goals and setting targets become, a really big part of life, and are one of the things that we can do to create habits that are extremely effective. The next thing that he speaks about on his list of 7 habits of highly effective people is this concept of first things first. So what does that mean to me? That means like focusing on what matters. And some of you guys will be familiar with, I'm probably not going to pronounce this right, but Pradio's law, like the 80-20 rule. We focus our time and efforts on the 20% of things that are going to make the biggest amount of difference. So we start with what's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. And we also start looking at some of the things that are going to be the needle movers in our life. Like, what are the things that are going to have the biggest amount of result for me for the least amount of effort, right? So we start looking at the first things first. What do I need to do first? And if I had to do that thing first, is it going to help me move the needle fast? So that's something that that you want to adopt. And that's really what that particular component of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of effective people, that's what that means to me. The next thing that he has on his list is this create a win-win. And I'm kind of going to take this even further. And I like to say it's like a 3X process, right? So it's a win-win-win. So how can I win? We don't ever want to set ourselves up in with there's one winner and then the rest are losers. You want to create an environment and a place for yourself where it becomes a win-win-win. So how can you win? How can the other person that you're working with win? And then how can everybody around you win? And it goes like this. Like if you can work from this perspective, then you win, they win, and when you win and they win, well, what else happens? Well, the world wins, other people win, and you end up having this ripple effect where they then start to do the same thing, and then more and more people start to win. So it's creating that win-win-win situation. Okay, the next thing that is on the list is like this concept of seek to understand first. So we're seeking to first to understand, and then we want to then be understood. All right, so we want to seek first to understand and then to be understood. So here's the thing, most of the time people listen, but they're not really listening to hear. They're not really listening to be present. They're not really listening to understand what it is that you're talking about. And when you think about that, the thing that most people crave is you just want to be heard. You just want to be understood, and you want to have somebody actually be present with you. What most people do is they're listening so that they can prepare themselves to respond, right? So they're already trying to get themselves a few steps ahead of the game by not really seeking to understand, they're seeking to respond. So that's one of the things that, now I'm very conscious, and I make a real, and this has been practice, and it's something that I've had to really make a conscious effort of, is be very present in that moment. Hence the reason that I didn't want to go live a little bit earlier this morning. Why? Because there's too much distraction going on here, and I couldn't isolate that. I couldn't isolate this distraction out. So what do? You just wait until there is a moment where you could actually be totally present with you guys, with you watching and listening today, that I could be absolutely present and give 100% of my attention to you. The next thing on the list that he talks about is this concept of synergize or synergy. And what does that mean to me? Well, that's like a coming together of, it's like a co-creation of, it's like bringing together those that I could work with. So for example, sometimes we look at other people and we would look at them as like our competition. However, often there is a lot of there's power in you working together and actually coming together and collaborating with others and creating a real synergy. That there is, again, I'm going to come back to this win-win-win, that there is a symbiotic type relationship where you're able to work together for the betterment of all. So that was the sixth thing, and that's what it means to me. And hence the reason that, I work a lot in partnerships now with people, because I love that. I mean, there's so many awesome things that happen with people when you're able to come together and work with other like-minded people that bring their genius to the table, and all of you working on your own, bringing your own genius to the table means that you can co-create something that is absolutely amazing. And again, everybody wins. And I can see that there's a bunch of people here saying hi, so I'm going to say shout out to you guys that are actually here with me today. Thanks for being here, even though the show is at a slightly different time this afternoon instead of my normal time of a morning. The seventh key that he has on his process is the process of sharpening your sword, or sharpening your saw. What does that actually mean? Well, over time, we get good at things, but it's not just about like learning and then stopping. I've learned enough. I don't want to do any more learning. It's like this continuous commitment to continually learn, continually allow our brains and our bodies to like experience new things. And it's really interesting, because if you go back and you actually listen to the very first show of the Unlocked show, that's actually why I created this show. Is it's about allowing yourself to experience new things, to live an unlocked life where you're able to take on new skills, new experiences, etc., so that you can live a very fulfilled life. So that's what it means to me. How do I go about developing a sense or a commitment to continual learning and having that continual learning approach to life? It would be things like tuning into shows like this, shows, podcasts, reading books, and then not just reading them, because gathering information is one thing, right? But actually then being able to take the information and apply it is a completely different kettle of fish. That's what takes you from kind of knowing something to mastery of things, is when you actually apply it. And that is what can stand you out significantly from everybody else, because most people in life, they are starved or thirsty for information, but that's it. That's as far as it goes into, sinking in to their being. It's just information. What we want to do, like I said, is we want to take that information, we want to absorb it, then kind of process it for ourselves, and then reapply it. And it's kind of like this process that I'm doing today, right? It's like I know and understand the concepts, or I read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. But now that I'm getting an opportunity to reflect on that and start thinking about what does it actually mean for me, it allows you to sink that information in a whole lot deeper than it being just surface level information. So I'm hoping that every time you tune in to the Unlock show, whether it's just one little thing that you take away, that you hear, you actually take it away. You spend some time, and my good friend Cassie Brown calls it marinating. So you marinate on that for a while, and you think about, well, what does that actually mean to me? And now what action can I take to apply that piece of information into my life? Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I called this the 8 habits of highly effective people. And I said to you, it was my takeouts from the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I also mentioned to you that there was an 8th, and there is an 8th one, and it is from Stephen Covey, and he has actually written a book about this too. And it's like he talks about, finding your voice. You want to find your voice, and then you want to help others find theirs. And when I realized that he had this book, it put the biggest freaking smile on my dial. Why? Because that's what I have come to realize is my purpose, is my calling in life. That's why I do this show. That's why, through this process of transformation, and you've heard me talk about this, my own transformation, as I've been creating these shows over the last, year and a bit now, that it's like this transformation of finding your own voice, becoming confident and comfortable in speaking in this type of environment. And then the interesting thing has been is that through that process, I then went and started creating, like I felt like I had a responsibility, like going back to that very first thing that he talks about, responsibility. I feel like I had a responsibility to share that knowledge and information and experience with others. So what did I do? Go away and actually create a program where I could guide and lead and coach others into finding their voice, right? It's been like, as I said, it put such a big smile on my face, because I was like, oh my God, without really purposely going through Stephen Covey's book and going, all right, well, what can I do to take responsibility? And then how will I start with the end in mind, and really like manufacturing it in that way It's very much just been an evolution, a very natural evolution of what's actually happened and taken form over this last year. And I can say that now, like, I'm in the best place because I'm doing all the things that just light me up, and it enables me to be like that firelighter, right? I can now, light other people's fires by helping them find their voice. And they too are then, I go back to like creating that synergistic type relationships and creating the win-win-win, because now what do? They go out and they're starting to create their own shows. They're finding their voice and their inner genius inside of them, and they are sharing it. And it's like this, it's like a contagious, a good contagious disease, but it's like, it becomes contagious. They then do it, then other people see them do it and say, how did you do that? And then they start doing it, and all of a sudden, that taking responsibility for something, finding your courage, and finding the voice inside of you and speaking up, is just amazing what kind of momentum and ripple effect you can cause. So like I've said on so many episodes of the Unlock Show, I am a huge advocate of people finding their voice. Now, to find your voice, you want to make sure that, I mean, obviously you can kind of do that yourself, and again, I've talked about this on previous different episodes of the Unlock Show. Or you can find some other people to help you. You can actually get some assistance from a team of people, and then find a creative group of people that you can that can be your tribe, and then they can help you to continuously like raise your level of awareness and your level of courage, so that you too can show up and start talking about things on a regular basis. So, so I want to kind of wrap this today's session up with a couple of things. What I've come to learn over years, and it's taken me, the truth is, it's taken me probably a good 40 odd years to kind of get to this point where I feel really comfortable to speak my mind, to speak about who I am, to find that courage inside. Because for many, many years, I certainly did not feel that way. And I felt like I was locked up. Like, and you'll hear me talk about, being, having these expert shackles tied around you. So this is kind of a lot of languaging that I use throughout the show, because it's been a lot of the experiences that I've had over many, many years. So here's what I've come to learn, and I was there too, is that most people are living under the expectations of others. And when you are living under the expectations of others, you feel very locked up. And I'm going to say almost, suffocated. When you are in that place, you do not feel free, right? You feel like you might express this in a different way, but you might feel heavy. You might feel like, ooh, you're just not feeling like you're balanced, or you've got the level of joy that you want in your life. And that's because you're not living your truth. You're not living your truth. You are living somebody else's truth, right? And so that's why it doesn't feel so great. And also, it's not your voice. So what we want to get you to do is to find that voice. What I want you to think about is having the curiosity to start to understand and know yourself. Because when you can do that, then you will also find the courage to be yourself. And it's like hugely, use that word a number of times today, right? Because it's just like so liberating when you get to the point of, I'm not going to live somebody else's life anymore. I'm not going to live a lie. I'm not going to live a life being locked up and feeling like I have to try and please everybody, or being fearful of judgment. I then can kind of take those chains off and be very liberated in what I do. And I start to have the curiosity to peel back the layers of myself and start to know oneself. And then I find that courage inside to be myself. And before I dial out on today's show, I also want to tell you this. You have use that word again, huge amount of greatness inside of you. Your genius is inside of you and it's ready to be unlocked. So I want to ask you this question. I want to ask you, is it time to let your voice out? If it's time to let your voice out and you just want a little bit of help to do that, then I would encourage you to head on over to influenceandauthority.com. Start watching the free workshop or masterclass that I have on that site. And then if you want some additional help, then book in an appointment with myself or one of our team, and we will chat with you to see whether or not our program is right for you. We would love to help you find your voice, and we would love to help you start making ripples in this world and staking your claim so that you can know yourself and be yourself and start living your life the unlocked way. So, hey guys, I want to say thanks very much for joining me on a wonderful blue skied Friday afternoon. And I'm going to be back again with another episode of The Unlock Show next week, normal time, Wednesday at 10 a.m. And I will have a guest with me next Wednesday. So have a fantastic weekend and thanks for joining me. I'm dialing out. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. Bye for now.